Hey, what up, though? In this video, I'm going to tell you about an opportunity, in my opinion, is going to be the biggest opportunity of our lives. If you truly listen to this information I'm about to give you, you have the ability to set your family up for generational wealth and be that good man that leaves an inheritance for his children's children. But for those that don't take heed, it'll have you regret your decision and wish you could go back in time and do things a little bit differently. But this will be one mistake, unlike the others, that you can't correct. I'm sure many of you have heard that we are witnessing the largest wealth transfer in human history, or that the middle class is being wiped out, and that in the coming years, you're going to be either rich or poor, and there won't be any in between. And that's what's happening right now. It's like those action movies. You know, when there's like a crack in the ground and the crack keep getting wider and wider and wider, and the actors look at each other and then both begin running to try to jump to the other side. I'm pretty sure you've seen movies like that, right? So you know what I'm talking about. That scene is what's currently happening with our economy. The gap between the rich and the poor is getting wider and wider. Soon it'll be so wide that it'll be impossible for you to get to the other side, even with a running start. One thing that separates the wealthy from the poor is their mindset, the way that they look at things. Do you see the glass as being half full or half empty? Do you view failure as a time to quit or as a time to try again? Only this time with more experience and knowledge. Do you blame others for the way your life is going, or do you realize that maybe, just maybe, your life is the way that it is because of the choices and decisions that you made in the past? Everyone has the same 24 hours a day, and for most of us that weren't born with a silver spoon in our mouth, a minimum of 8 of those are spent at a just over broke. You know, a job. And what we do with the other 16 can determine whether we'll end up wealthy or poor. Wealthy people spend the majority of those 16 hours learning how to escape the rat race by getting wealthier, while poor people spend the majority of those hours being entertained. If you had habits like the poor, your life isn't going to change much, regardless of who is in the White House. Another thing that wealthy people do is accumulate assets. I'm sure many of you know what that is, but for those of you that don't, the definition I like to use is an asset is something that you own that pays you whether you work or not. The bank will have you believing that the house you live in and the car that you drive are assets. Well, I guess they are assets for them. If you lose your job and can't afford your mortgage or your car note, what do you think will happen next? Right? They're going to get repoed. So in that case, it's an asset for the bank. Remember, an asset pays you. You were paying a bank, so it was an asset for the bank. But if you were to rent that house or car on Turo, then it becomes an asset for you. If you have a job, you're an asset for your employee because you make money for them whether they work or not. The goal of wealthy people is to accumulate as many assets as possible. You may or may not have heard this, but the people that benefit the most from inflation are the people that are closest to the money printer. What that means is the people that get the newly printed money, as soon as it comes off the press, they get to spend it first. And as this money begins exchanging hands and trickling down through the economy, all along the way is bidding up the prices of everyday goods and services. The wealthy understand this because they spent the majority of those 16 hours learning how money works. So it only makes sense to them to be as close to the money printer as possible. And every time the money printer goes burr or money goes on sale, they get as much as they can so that they can enrich themselves and their families for generations to come. I know some of y'all probably like, wait, hold on, what? Did he just say money goes on sale? You ain't know money went on sale? Have you ever heard on the news them talk about the Fed is having a meeting today and they're going to decide whether or not they're going to raise or lower interest rates? You probably have, right? All interest rates is the cost of money. When you hear that interest rates are falling, that means that money going on sale. When you hear that rates are rising, that means that money is getting more expensive. And now think about it in your life. When something goes on sale, what do you think most people do? They buy more stuff, right? This is what economists call consumption. They get the masses to consume more or less based upon what they do with the interest rate. The U.S. economy is based on consumption. Think about it. When the interest rates go down, what do most people do? Take out a loan to go buy a bigger house, brand new car, take a trip, or buy new clothes. I mean, you get the picture. They consume. Now, don't get me wrong. I like consuming. It's just the order in which you consume. Remember I said that the people that are closest to the money printer benefit the most from inflation? Were any of you wondering, how do you get close to the money printer? Well, I'm about to tell you. In the United States, the way that you get those fresh, crisp dollars is by borrowing them. U.S. is a debt-based society, and all of the money that is in circulation is a result of someone borrowing it into existence. When the interest rates drop, this causes causes people to borrow, which adds more money to the circulating supply. You know how when you add more water to Kool-Aid, it dilutes it and weakens the taste? When all of those new dollars are added to the economy, it dilutes the purchasing power of all of the dollars that were already in circulation. This dilution is reflected in the price of things. There is more money chasing a limited amount of goods. That's why it appears that the grocery costs more, the gas costs more, your rent costs more. These things are actually the same price as they were back in the 1950s and 60s. Actually, they should be cheaper than they were back then because we have better manufacturing processes than we did then. But the reason the prices are higher is because the goods are priced in dollars, and the dollars have been diluted like 100 times since then. Again, inflation affects everyone, but there's something that you can do to make sure that you're the one benefiting from it instead of being crushed by it. Remember that money printer? When the money comes off the press, both rich, middle class, poor, they all have access to it. But the difference is what they do with the money. The middle class borrows money to buy bigger house, cars, take trips, things of that nature. The rich understand what's going to happen because all this money printing, so they buy assets that will go up in value once the money trickled down through the economy. Then they use the income from their assets to buy the bigger house, new cars, and all of those other things. Think about it. If your rent goes up, who's going to benefit from your rent increasing? Your landlord, right? Who probably borrowed the money to buy the rental from the bank. When inflation kicks in, he'll just pass those inflation costs right over along to the tenant by raising the rent. Plus, he also benefits because the value of the rental is going to go up when inflation kicks in. So he benefits there as well. The price of food goes up. Who do you think benefits from that? The food providers and their shareholders. So the middle class borrows money to consume while the rich borrow money to invest in assets, and the cash flow from the assets is spent on consumption. And what's currently happening now is the uber wealthy are actively accumulating all of the assets. And I don't know if you heard it or not, but we're in the process of moving from a credit-based society to an asset-based society. That's why it's a mad dash on their part to accumulate as much assets before this inflation goes into overdrive, which it is, because whoever controls the asset will be at the top of the new financial system. So if you want to have any control of your life in the coming years, it's imperative that you switch your mindset from consumer to investor, because that gap that I was talking about earlier, you know, the one that keeps getting wider and wider, it's the distance in wealth between the haves and the have-not. And the wealth is measured in assets. And if you don't do something soon to get your assets up, I fear that sometime in the near future that the gap is going to be too wide to even jump across. And the people that aren't on the rich side, you're going to be stuck in a permanent poor class. Remember in another video that I told you that they have a plan for your life? While they have you all being scared of Project 2025, you need to be looking into the World Economic Forum. These people meet every year and they want you to eat bugs and be in a state of perpetual servitude and rent everything. When I say everything, they want you to rent your silverware and dishes. I learned about the World Economic Forum and their plans in 2020. So since then, I've been just looking at the world through a different lens, and I can see how their plans are actually coming together. But you know what? I don't want you to believe anything I say. Go look it up for yourself. Google by 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy. Look at that Forbes. They aren't even hiding it from you anymore because they know that the masses are so docile that they aren't even going to do anything about it anyway. And listen to this. This isn't just some group of nobodies. Some of the most powerful people, including Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, and President Biden, are members of the World Economic Forum. The people that you voted for because you thought they had your best interests in mind are members of a group that wants you to eat bugs and lab-grown meat because they say the methane gas that is produced by cow farts is damaging the ozone layer. They came to this conclusion while they were at a meeting that they arrived at by private jet. There were over 100 jets there in Davos this year. They don't care nothing about the planet. They only care about control. Again, don't believe me. Don't believe nothing I say. Go look it up for yourself. If you thought somebody was coming to save you, I got news for you. Ain't nobody coming. You got to save yourself. You know what? When I learned this, I went to a dark place. I started withdrawing from people because I felt like, what's the use? I might as well not even know this information because I'm telling everyone around me and nobody's even preparing or like even listening. They're just like, okay, well, whatever. And I know that I can't take on all of these elites by myself. Then I remember that although this stuff might sound scary, God is still on the throne and he didn't give us a spirit of fear. And if I was scared, who was I letting control my life? Because the only control over our life that anyone has is that which we give them. Now I'm all about taking back my life and showing others and helping them do the same. I have a strong sense of urgency and want to take as many people to the rich side as possible.